Hi all, there was a very exciting game not yet covered on the channel from the Sinquefield Cup played earlier this year between Veselin Topalov playing white and Hikaru Nakamura playing black. Let's have a look at that game. E4 from Topalov, who would like, by the way, to do a sacrifice video on soon. He's another aggressive, dynamic, tactical player who has been a FIDE world champion officially in the past as well. E5, we have Nf3 Nc6, Bishop B5, the Roy Lopez, A6, Bishop A4, Knight F6. Pretty standard so far. Standard opening moves. Now we see Bishop C5, so Arcangulist kind of system. This Bishop quite aggressive on that diagonal. C3, there's a slight downside potentially that white could either accelerate a D4 or get maybe a nasty pin sometimes on that F6 knight. D6. And now, usually, well, it's a toss-up between D4 and A4 theoretically, statistically. A4 was chosen, Rook B8, pretty standard so far. Now, usually the move D4 is actually played here. 477 games in live book. In this game, we see a much rarer bird, just with 2 games. H3, very interesting indeed. So why not that D4 immediately? Well, okay. Black now just castled. From an engine point of view, it's a fine position to do it like this. Maybe it doesn't matter. Transposes back. D4, Bishop B6. So white has stopped that potentially nasty pin to put pressure on D4. We have Rook E1. And now Bishop B7. Now white took on B5 and played Knight A3. So trying to provoke this pawn forward. I think this would be quite unpleasant to play B4, because now the knight would not only centralise, but that C4 square is juicy, hitting B6 as well, putting pressure on E5. So this looks as though it would be in white's favour. Instead, Naka tried to counter-attack on this pawn. First he took here, so that opens up that potentially that E file. Now he played Knight A5, so leaving B5 just to counter-attack here, and also threaten taking here as well. So let's see this position actually. If knight takes b5, knight takes here might actually be the strongest, and then bishop takes e4, and black would be doing well there. So white wants to avoid that. Just bishop c2 was played, not minding potential tempo gains like this, but should black really go in for it? Well, it's a tricky position if b4 isn't played here. I think so. White's threatening that pawn, but also to play b4 potentially. That would be quite useful as well. Let's just say, for sake of argument, black did play something like c6. Okay, here actually, yeah, either b4. I mean, this is given as quite good for white. Just the idea here of queen d3. So this sort of position, white is threatening now this pin. This could be an annoying pin because that bishop's over there. It's a position, but I think white's quite comfortable there. So Naka stops that by playing b4 himself, and the knight goes back to b1. But when it reroutes, there's intensity on these squares. Rook e8, knight bd2, so protecting e4 again. 3 pieces attacking, 1, 2, 3 defending. b3 seemingly unpleasant for white, a little bit. Blocking in this bishop in particular, but this bishop lurks on this dangerous diagonal. And here, okay, bishop d3 might even be an option. Bishop b1 was played. Now queen d7, and in this position white actually maybe takes a small risk. He plays actually e5, and I say it's a small risk just from a theoretical point of view. If we look at this position with e5 being played, the upside, it's a double-edged sword I think, the upside is that diagonal, and potentially knight g5 as well is going to be dangerous. If this knight moves, then the queen comes into h5, and you see a fairly crude attack brewing up here. The downside though is on d takes. I think black should play d takes to try and wrench open this diagonal just in principle. But if knight d5, then actually this looks, you know, stuff like this looks tempting, but maybe h6 repulses that here. There's nothing that concrete. I think the engine's not picking up anything concrete, and you know, something like knight f4 or knight b4 could actually be interesting for black. Maybe with bishop d5 coming up. So yeah, if this attack isn't working, I think the major issue with this is this b3 pawn. Actually, the more important issue here might be b3, but I guess knight e4 is also going for the attack as well with queen d3. So this could be dangerous. For example, taking if the queen moved, just as sake of argument, knight g5, we see a lot of dangers emerging. But yeah. Okay, so knight d5 might have some issues, either with taking or knight e4. Probably both are quite dangerous in their own right. I mean, this looks like a speculative pawn sack if black were to sack that b3 pawn here. This looks as though there's not much of a problem going on. Not like a dreaded Marshall Gambit. So anyway, Naka actually did take this. He didn't want to just use that d5 square. And in doing so, now here, d takes was played. If knight takes, let's have a quick look. Just queen takes d4 is embarrassing white actually. Rather than queen takes f2, the knight's hanging. That's not particularly good. Not at all. So yes, d takes is forced, but it opens up this bishop. Is that useful? In this position, the knight goes to h5, so menacingly to f4 could be very dangerous. Look at these bishops, they look absolutely wonderful. In fact, in this position, black seems set for some sort of hack attack potentially. Maybe the knight and the rook can swing in like this one day, or is this all a distant dream? What about white's attack? This diagonal looking at h7. White now played knight g5, and it looks very, very critical. Both sides seem to have the X-ray guns out here, targeted at each other's kings. This is a very critical position, and of course it's very dead easy nowadays for anyone with computers to get the computer to suggest a move which might be stronger than what was played. It seems that bishop takes f2 might be the way for black to play this. It's not so easy to spot the follow-up for this move. It is sacking an entire bishop. So let's have a look how it works, this contraption. King takes, queen d4, just from a theoretical point of view, if this was a major improvement. So king move, knight g3 splat, checkmate. Ouch. So the rook goes in front, and there's a pin there. I think Marshall would play for pins and sacrifice pieces just to get a pin, to celebrate a pin. Rook takes e5. So I've been looking at Marshall's game recently. Black is actually, in theory, doing very well here. If queen takes h5, there's a mate in 2. Check and mate. Okay, so if bishop takes h7, then if king here, knight takes f7, is forcing a draw, actually, or is it? Actually, no, this is actually better for white. Knight takes e5, gets really hairy. Check. Knight ef3, that one's pinned to the queen. This is a hairy position. Bishop takes here. And apparently queen e1, and white might actually survive to tell the tale here in this position. Maybe even with king h2 here. So very hairy stuff starting in this lane. So we play rook e3, rook takes e5, so queen h5 is out of the question, but this bishop takes h7. Black can improve in this position though. Instead of king h8, king f8, and this is a real test now of this pin on e3. In fact, this is crazy, but the suggestion here is queen f3. Yes, what on earth is this position about? Okay, let's have a look. If bishop takes f3, Knight d takes f3 actually protects the rook and hits these guys, and this might totally backfire now on black. In fact, what does black do? Black seems actually busted here. This position is busted for black. White is threatening knight d7 checkmate. If here, knight g takes f7, and it really does start to look quite grim. Difficult to suggest what black does in this position. Let's just rewind now. What on earth is this going on here? So bishop takes. So what did the engine have in mind here for this bishop sack? Rook takes e5. So bishop takes h7. King f8. And it seems queen f3. So if we take on f3 here, it just seems a total disaster. If we take on e3, that's broken our pin, and worse, there's queen takes f7 checkmate. But black does have a move in this position. It doesn't have to take the queen. Rook takes g5. I know it's astronomical complications, so instead of taking the queen, leaves pressure on f3 and g2. So white tries to fend off with bishop e4. And now queen c5 apparently is good for whatever technical reason. Queen c5. What is it actually doing? Well, one idea is rook g3, another one is knight g3, and there's also rook g6 to try and go like this, because that's pinning there. Very, very complex position here, but it seems this is like nearly +5. This was the way then for black to play it. Astronomically complex though. I think you need to be an exceptionally good calculator for bishop takes f2. I guess one could play it in principle to open up the king there to get this pin. So promote this variation. This is forced. I'm going to promote that variation. Then we have this. Then we have bishop takes h7. So I'll promote bishop takes h7. So you can have this in the PGN of the game score. This is white's best, apparently. Or is it? Bishop e4 is also given, but here rook takes g5 again. If bishop takes, knight takes, black apparently is doing well here. Rook f5 is coming around the corner. Queen takes b3 with knight f3 around the corner. Queen d8 is given for whatever reason. If we get this position, what's happened here? 4 pawns for black, 2 pieces. White's the exchange up. Apparently, from an engine point of view, black is better in this crazy position here. White's best might be to get a pair of rooks off like this. This position apparently is okay for black. Black, if anyone's better, apparently it's black. But yeah, it's quite a lot to analyze without the assistance of a computer. Even with the assistance of a computer, this seems such complex stuff to analyze. This bishop takes f2. But anyway, so let's go on from here, from this moment bishop takes f2. So g6 was played. Okay, after g6, e6, so damaging the pawn chain around Nakamura's king. It doesn't want to allow e takes f7. There's nothing clever here now. I think the bishop takes f2 doesn't really do much in this position as before. Difference, because that e file is being blocked here for a start. So this is just much more harmless, that pin on e3. That's what we can say here, I think, safely. So e6, f takes. Now the move queen g4 was played. Okay, so white is actually, the principal threat is actually knight takes h7. Just to demonstrate that, let's just give white a move by playing bishop c6. Knight takes. If queen takes, bishop takes. If queen g7, queen takes h5. You see it's dangerous. Okay. So that's the principal threat. And if, by the way, king takes, then we just we can just take here and take that. Black's king is in trouble there. Okay, so queen g4 introduces that knight takes h7. Knight f6 was played, parrying that, kicking the queen to h4 now. In this position, with this isolated pawn blunting the rook, it seems knight here would be nice to put pressure on e5 to open up this bishop. But also this diagonal could be dangerous. If this bishop can just come out like this, then both bishops will be pointing at the king, in theory. Rook f8, it looks as though f2 sensitive, but that's blocked now anyway. Bishop d5. It's a difficult position, it might be a slight mistake. Rook be8 was prompted as being slightly better for white anyway. So bishop d5. And now we see knight e5. It seems a bit cheeky to allow potential coordination on f2. It doesn't really do anything. The queen's on f2 anyway now. If any, bishop f2. We're attacking the black queen. Topalov is attacking Nakamura's queen. Queen g7. And now here is where this is a really good looking move in theory, just to get on this diagonal. And with tempo, because it's on the knight, that knight is asked to move as well. You can't go here. We've got two pieces on the knight here, so it goes back to c6. Now, bishop c3, you might think does the same thing, but actually this position might actually be okay after h6, g5. Apparently, black is doing okay here. So a slight finesse actually, which doesn't allow this kind of unravelment, I think, is played. Knight takes c6 is played slightly stronger. So now bishop c3, and white stands better here. The reason is, I think one of the reasons, this e6 pawn. So if we try this, I think we can just snap e6. Yeah, so e6, so e5 getting a tempo there and giving up the pawn, but one else. So this knight takes c6. Yes, it seems actually in this position before, yes, Nakamura played the automatic recapture. Apparently he had to use this opportunity. It's such a difficult position, he had to use this opportunity instead of reserving it for the recapture here. The move for black to stay in the game would have been knight h5. I know, it's immensely complex. Black is now introducing bishop takes f2 to win that queen. And here, if, say, rook e2, bishop takes c6, we have a difference here that e6 is weighed down by f2 issues, I think. So if knight takes e6, black might even be able to play rook takes f2. It's immensely complicated. Wow, offering the queen. Calculation rules these types of positions. This isn't exactly an easy game to understand, but in this variation, if knight takes g7, then rook takes g2, discover check is actually a mate in 3. For example, like this. Splat, mate in 3. So that's why knight takes e6. Yeah, rook takes f2 is not good for white at all. Rook takes, we just take here, we win the queen. And then also black can actually play check as well here, or even queen takes b2. So black's doing very well there, winning absolutely. So this is why there's an opportunity here for knight h5. This wasn't used. So we have this recapture here, and okay, so e6 looks as though that could be taken in this position. this wasn't. On move 29, bishop c3 was chosen, so another ingenious thing is going on here. This is a very nasty pin. Pins really are very good for the attacking players to create. Now, if the knight wasn't pinned, so it's more greedy in a way, but it is a fork, and you might think, well, forks, that's not bad either, as a second best. The thing is, black might have a resource here again, a very, very tactical resource in knight g4. It's crazy stuff, the variations of this game. What on earth is this about? Well, if we take the queen, bishop takes f2 is apparently good for black. Rook takes f2, so we're on g2. And if here, then this is really good for black. Apparently, rook takes d2. We've got, well, we've got all sorts coming up. Bishop g2, bishop b5. So this is really good for black. It's crazy. So knight g4 might be tricky to actually handle here. If hg, bishop takes f2, queen takes, rook takes, you think knight takes, we have rook g2. If here, then it's discovered check taking a piece. So say king here, rook f8, bishop f5. I know it's absolutely crazy stuff, but apparently black ends up being better here. I know, it's amazing. It's astronomical, this game. Yes. Right. Yes, so in the game, so we had bishop takes c6, and we had, instead of knight takes e6, we have bishop c3, just pinning that knight. Necker now played e5. Now, what is this about? If bishop takes e5, then rook here might be okay for black. For example, bishop here, rook takes, bishop takes, queen d7, with the idea of queen d1 coming up. Apparently this is slightly better for black. So yeah, this is very interesting stuff. But actually rook takes e5 was played. This is the more accurate way, apparently, of taking on e5. If rook be8, that one, rook takes is safe enough here. In this position, e1's covered. White can apparently play knight takes here. So if takes, we can take on f6. And that's much better for white. This is crushing. Okay, so yeah, after rook takes e5, Necker played knight d5. And yet another astronomical move, queen c4, creating this pin. Intuitively, this pin would be good news to the attacking player, leaving f2 to be a positional pawn sack. Yes, intense pressure. If black doesn't take on f2 now, say queen f6, king h1, white is threatening rook takes d5, among other things. If rook here, bishop e4, ouch, pin and win. It looks horrible. We can actually intensify even further, gang out even further on d5, and leave that pin for torturing black. So this position just gets worse and worse for that pin after knight e6. We take, and finally we can win that piece on d5 safely. Yeah, so it's a pretty nasty pin introduced. So bishop takes f2 was played, and king h1, still a very nasty pin. Rook b4. Seems like a desperate move now. So this is at move 33. Bishop takes b4. So the idea is to win that rook with queen takes e5. But alas, here the pin is ganged up on bishop e4. And also this rook is still attacked. So the rook moves to f6. Now if it moved, you might think, well, can it move to d8 as well? Well, queen takes c6 is a pain. If knight takes here, queen c4 check, and we again have a nasty position where black actually collapses after this move, rook a8 apparently, creating another pin tactically, and everything drops like a pack of cards. We take here. I know, if you weren't analysing this game with a computer in the pre-computer engine era, no one would have a clue about these variations for probably months and months after. This stuff is just crazy. The players would know, maybe, but everyone else, this is just crazy, this game. So rook d8 fells, it seems, for tactical reasons, after queen takes, as we mentioned, queen takes c6 and this check. So rook f6 was played, and now rook d1, putting pressure there, and white simply just took on d5. There was no way of doing anything about that. One last little trick here: if rook takes d5, then white loses, I think. It looks as though this is a bit loose around his king, or is it? No, actually white's still winning. Sorry, the e1 is covered from the bishop. So in fact, rook takes d5 or queen takes d5 both win. Apparently rook takes d5 is more accurate for some reason. Rook f4, but here it's queen b5. I think we've got access now to d7. So if rook takes b4, we play queen d7 check, and then we take on e5. So it doesn't really help even rook f4 here. So anyway, queen takes d5 was played, and after all of that complicated stuff, well, black resigned here. Black is a piece down. He hasn't got any major tactic here. So yes, it seems busted. If taking, there's nothing clever here that black can do really. He's only a pawn for a piece there. And also bishop c3 is now threatened, among other things, to again get a nasty pin. So in a nutshell, an astronomically complex tactical encounter there, where it seems easy for commentators to say with their engines plugged in that at one point it seems as though in principle, I mean, you could play such a move in principle, as though there was a downside to this d takes with this coming up here, this critical moment, sort of g6. I mean, at one basic level of the game, we can say this looks quite thematic to play e6 here, because it damages the pawn chain around black's king. It looks like a thematic move. So given that, you know, maybe just from that point of view, but this just seems as though this is such a complex variation. Bishop takes f2, and in fact I've been examining king takes f2 all this. I've just realised there's also other complex branches on king h2 or king h1. It seems actually king h2 is a good candidate now. Yes. Okay, so what will black do here? If he takes here, bishop takes h7. What does black do here? If king h8, black's busted. Queen takes h5. This looks grim. Like this. Bishop f5 check. Bishop takes d7. So in this line, you know, assuming we're taking the rook, if king f8, again, white's doing okay after queen takes. Now with bishop f5 on the cards, takes here, knight d e4. Again, it's vastly complex, but bishop f4 is on the cards. Takes, bishop takes. Apparently, white is doing well in this position, because there's possibilities of this check and taking here. It's dangerous. So yeah, this really sets off a huge maze of complications. So king h2 at a certain depth is now favoured actually instead of king f2. Maybe this is what Topalov had been planning, just to sidestep, just to offer the rook. Now, if we don't take the rook, there's actually better that black can do here. Queen d5 apparently. So threatening mate in 1. And if takes, now king h8 might be playable. Knight df3. Check. Here. Knight c4, getting that knight out of trouble. Apparently this position here, where black has numerous threats and pressure, it looks visually as though this is a very nice position. All of black's pieces seem okay. Bishop e4, black could even get the queens off. Smoke clears here. Black apparently is doing quite well. Okay. Yeah, hugely complex stuff. Yeah. So yeah, okay, maybe that was Naka's chance. Everyone can say that with their engines now. Why didn't he play bishop takes f2? So we've had to cover king takes f2 and all the huge complications of that. Apparently, you know, king h2, and we haven't even considered king h1 would need to be calculated. But here, I think this can be ruled out. Check. And now apparently h6. This is the best move apparently, because here, in this position, queen d5 looks good, or even queen b5. Apparently black is doing very well here. Mega complex, that's all I can say. If bishop e4, black can take here, take here, take here. This position is very nice for black. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, g6 just put white in the driving seat intuitively. I think we can say that honestly, that this looks as though it's promising for white now in some respects, but on the other hand, that f-file dynamic is still pretty dangerous. So knight f6. If the thing is, we can't go for that f-file. If we go for that f-file, white just okay, white can block here and still got that huge pressure on e6. There's also knight takes h7 here to consider. So this position we can actually just, I think, just take on e6 to be better now. But even here, you know, it's just complicated. The whole thing is complicated. Apparently, white has to be, you know, with that pin, white has to be really careful here. And might actually be worse. Oh dear. Okay. So yeah, I've cleared this game up for you. Yes, or this is one game I shouldn't have started doing the video for. I regret that now. So yes, whatever happened, it seemed to go in Topalov's favour in this game, in this crazy game. So sometimes it's good to avoid complications. Sometimes it's good to go in for them. Maybe both players didn't want to use all their energy for this game when there's the rest of the tournament. Yeah, it looks as though it was made sort of easy-ish, the way the game flowed. But behind the scenes, we're talking astronomical complications. It just so happens, yeah, this seems to be the top engine move, nearly over +4 to use this pin. So from an intuitive angle, you know, this game seems as though there was a pin that was exploited in the center. But yeah, behind the scenes, it's astronomical complications. Yes, I'm glad I cleared that game up for you. Oh dear. Anyway, Nakamura resigned here. This seemed clear enough, this position at least. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.